I remember the night everything changed. The moment I realized that my entire world was built on lies. It was in the dead of night, just as I had finally settled into bed, exhausted from the long day. My wife, who I had always trusted, came to bed and clung to me, her arms wrapped around me tightly as if she could hold me in place. In the past, I would have been overjoyed, maybe even grateful for the affection. But this time it was different. This time, it felt suffocating. I lay there, unable to breathe in the air of deceit that hung between us. I could feel her warmth, but all I could think about was how I had become a fool, blindly trusting her as she had slipped further away from me. I couldn't take it anymore. So, without a word, I quietly slipped out of the bed, careful not to disturb her as she slept soundly, unaware of the storm brewing in my heart. I didn't go back to bed. I went to the couch, where I spent the night lying wide awake, my mind racing with thoughts of her betrayal. In the past, it was her who had left me alone, retreating to the couch, unable to sleep beside me. I had always been the one who stayed, desperate to hold on to something that no longer existed. And now here I was, sleeping on that same couch, staring at the ceiling as I thought about the lies she had told, the things she had hidden from me. I had always been a patient man, but patience had its limits. It felt like the walls were closing in on me, and I needed space, a change, something to break free from the suffocating reality I found myself in. As soon as morning came, I made my decision. I had to change something in my life, something that could remind me of my independence. So, I bought a new couch. It was ridiculous, I knew, but it was the only thing that felt like an act of rebellion against the life I had been living with her. When my wife asked why I was acting so distant, I simply told her that I had returned from work late and didn't want to disturb her sleep. I lied to her, but at that moment, it felt like the only thing I could do. She didn't question it. We both went on with our routine, pretending like everything was normal, when in reality, everything had shattered beyond repair. Days turned into weeks, and I continued with the charade. She texted me one day to let me know she'd be coming home late, and without hesitation, I replied with a simple, "It's fine." But I knew exactly where she would be. I knew who she would be with. She was having an affair. Her lies had been buried so deep that even I couldn't see them until it was too late. Every time she left, I would feel the crushing weight of the betrayal, a pain that tore through me each and every time. It wasn't just the affair that hurt. It was the fact that she had chosen him over me. And I wasn't just any man. I had been the one who had stood by her, supported her, loved her. But all of that meant nothing when the allure of his wealth and position beckoned. I spent sleepless nights researching, piecing together the details of her affair. It wasn't just about her infidelity. It was about understanding why she had chosen him. And when I finally found out that her affair partner was the heir to a majority of shares in the company she worked for, the puzzle pieces clicked into place. She wasn't in love with him. She wasn't even in love with me anymore. She was after his wealth, his status, and his power. Nothing more, nothing less. The realization was painful, but it also sparked something inside me, a desire for revenge. Divorce wouldn't be enough. She needed to pay for what she had done. Her birthday was approaching, and I knew she had planned to meet him in her office. She had promised it would be for a gift, but I knew better. It would be just another rendezvous, another chance for her to deceive me. That's when the plan started to form in my mind. I called her parents and convinced them to help me orchestrate a surprise birthday celebration for her at her workplace. It was perfect. I knew her office was lenient about small surprises, as long as they didn't disrupt the work environment. I would use that leniency against her. The plan was simple. They would drop off cake and food during her break and then leave without disturbing anyone. I knew she would be there, and I knew what I wanted to happen next. On the day of her birthday, I didn't wish her a happy birthday. She probably thought I was planning something, and she was right, but not in the way she expected. As noon arrived, I called my father-in-law and, with a hint of regret in my voice, told him I wouldn't be able to make it to the party. Something had come up at work and I needed to attend to it. I urged him to proceed with the plan, telling him that she would be in the warehouse for inventory work. I knew exactly where she would be. I knew that her betrayal was about to be exposed, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction knowing that it wasn't me who would deliver the truth. It would be her family. That evening, Her parents arrived at the office, and what they found shocked them to their core. I wasn't there when it happened, but I didn't need to be. The news spread like wildfire throughout our small town, and I heard every detail of what transpired. It was like something out of a nightmare. Her parents rushed to the warehouse and found her, completely naked, caught in a compromising situation with her affair partner. The chaos that followed was nothing short of a spectacle. Her mother slapped her in front of everyone and began reprimanding her while she was still in the midst of the encounter. The affair partner, only partially dressed, made a hasty escape, leaving her exposed and humiliated. It was the ultimate betrayal, not just to me, but to her family. Her own parents had witnessed her humiliation, and they had left her there to face the consequences of her actions alone. When she finally came home that night, I was waiting for her. She seemed like she had something heavy on her mind, and I could see the guilt in her eyes. She knew the truth had come out, and she had no choice but to admit it. She confessed that she had been cheating on me for a while and tried to explain her actions. She said it was because she had grown bored while waiting for surgery, and somehow, she had ended up talking to this other guy. I listened to her, but I wasn't surprised. I had known all along. I had seen the signs, but it still didn't make the words any easier to hear. When I told her that I already knew, she was taken aback. She began to cry, to beg, to plead. She said she never meant for things to go as far as they did. But at that moment, it didn't matter. The trust was broken beyond repair. I chose to believe her. Only for a moment. I wiped away her tears and kissed her, allowing her to believe that things were going to be okay. But they weren't. Not for me, not for us. That night, she initiated intimacy. I went along with it, but it wasn't because I wanted her. It was because I needed her to believe that everything was fine. In truth, it was the final act. The last act of submission. The last act of me trying to keep her close when, in reality, I had already let her go in my mind. Afterward, as she fell asleep beside me, I made my move. I had been planning this for days, preparing for this moment. I gathered everything that belonged to her and packed it up, determined to take the first steps toward freedom. I drove her things to her parents' house and unloaded everything there. I wasn't sure what I was expecting, but I knew one thing. I needed closure. I left the divorce papers and a note on the kitchen table, knowing she would find them when she returned home. I wasn't expecting her to still be around when I got back that evening. I had hoped she would be gone, but she wasn't. She started calling, texting, pleading with me, but I had already made up my mind. I couldn't let her back in. I couldn't allow myself to be consumed by her lies anymore. So I took a step I never thought I would take. I got a restraining order against her. It was the final step in severing ties with the woman I once loved. As the divorce proceedings moved forward, I started to focus on healing. I sought therapy to help me deal with the pain and anger I had been carrying for so long. Slowly, life began to feel a little lighter. I reconnected with friends, started new hobbies, and allowed myself to breathe again. The bitterness started to fade, and with it, the anger that had consumed me. I realized that revenge had never been the answer. What I needed was peace, and that peace came from within. Eventually, the divorce was finalized. And while I had no regrets, I couldn't help but feel a sense of relief. It was over. I was free. In time, I found love again. This time, it was different. She didn't promise me the world. She didn't offer false promises of eternal love. But she offered me something more valuable: honesty, respect, and trust. And as I stand here today, reflecting on the past, I know that the hardest part wasn't the betrayal itself. It was the strength it took to rise above it, to let go of the anger, and to heal from the wounds that had once seemed impossible to mend.